O'Connor. She wishes to discuss plans to ensure adequate provision of student accommodation in where? Carlow.
Thank you, County Carlow, and thank you, Minister, and I thank you for the opportunity to raise this important issue tonight. And Minister, as you know, we were all delighted with the South East Technological University Strategy Plan, which was launched this month in particular again, and the SETU and Carlow, of course. St Patrick's, which is the other college, is the second oldest third-level institution in Ireland and a leader in education in Ireland. And the future is very bright in the South East, particularly for Carlow Kilkenny. But as you can tell, we need to have a look at the student accommodation, and this is what I'm asking tonight. I'm asking to know what plan is there regarding student housing or student accommodation for County Carlow, and what has been maybe put in place or what has been developed. Now, I know the government is acutely aware of the challenges facing students right now, and when they turn, of course, in September now to go back to third level. I took a quick look at the rental sites in Carlow today. The average rent for 1 month in Carlow now, Minister, is $1,400 for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment style rental, and at the moment there's five. Today, as of today, there's 5. And while the Student Assistance Fund is welcome, there is a huge lack of availability of bed space on the campus accommodation, and bespoke housing is urgently needed. Now, I reached out to Carlow County Council, and I also spoke to SETU to ask them their plans and what is happening. And I'm trying to kind of get information. Now, in fairness to Carlow County Council, they came back to me and they said that their policy regarding student accommodation, that it should be located convenient to educational facilities by foot, bicycle or public transport, and generally either within the college campus or appropriately zoned lands. And that's welcome, but I'm not really getting much information. I know that under the Housing for All, government approval is secured to allow technological universities to borrow to build student accommodation. This will help increase availability, and is that what's happening? Minister, can you tell me what the department plans are to ensure that the students attending SETU and Carlow College will find adequate accommodation? We must ensure that students are, and I've been working with a lot of students myself recently, and as I said, it's great for Carlow. I believe Carlow being a university town and Kilkenny, it's a game changer for us. And the biggest issue, speaking to families, is particularly if you're just outside Carlow, is if they have to stay overnight or whatever, and we have to make sure that we have proper student accommodation. And again, it's a cost factor, and I'm wondering, is there anything can be done with that? Because while we have this now, we now need to look to the future. But I'm just wondering, when the Technological University when it started originally, there was meetings, 7 years it was going on between, I was a senator at the time and then a TD. And it took us a long time to get here, but we are here now, and I'm just wondering, do we in the South East need to set up another Oireachtas group where we can look at plans for accommodation? Because we have Waterford, we have Kilkenny, we have Carlow and we have Wexford, and this is the bigger picture. And as you know, Carlow, Kilkenny is my concern. So I'm just wondering, how do we now put a proper plan in place? How do we work together and help SETU, help Carlow County Council, help Kilkenny, help Waterford, help Wexford? How do we play our part now to make sure that we provide proper accommodation for students who need it? And also, look, it's the worry for the families if their students can't find anywhere, and there's the cost factor. So the more we have, it won't be as expensive. So I'm just wondering, what is the plan going forward? Thank you.
Conclude, please.
Thank you, Carlow. It's kind of Carlow Kilkenny fest around here this evening. But I want to thank Deputy Murnane-O'Connor for posing this question and providing an opportunity to update on Minister Harrison Collins' plans to respond to the issues she has raised. Minister Harrison Collins and their officials are actively addressing the availability of student accommodation, given the challenges in the wider rental market that has just been described by Deputy Murnane-O'Connor. Through Housing for All, the Government has approved development of long and short-term policy and the provision of funding to increase the supply of purpose-built student accommodation. A dedicated student accommodation unit has been established to develop and implement this policy alongside the Higher Education Authority. The ministers and their officials are working closely with Minister Darragh O'Brien and officials in the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage on the range of measures, including standards for student accommodation. In addition, to this extensive collaboration, the wider education sector and other key stakeholders are involved in student accommodation discussions. The immediate priority is to activate projects with planning permission. To date, the Government is supporting 1,071 new beds in the University of Limerick, Dublin City University, Maynooth University and the University of Galway. Department officials are also examining potential additional developments at UCD, at Trinity, the University of Galway and UCC under this short-term measure. Minister Darragh O'Brien will bring an update on this initiative to Government by the end of Q2 2023. The Government has also approved funding of €1 million to support the technological universities to assess their accommodation needs. The funding being provided will provide consultancy support to undertake a cohesive and regional-focused feasibility study, as suggested by the Deputy, for each technological university. This study will inform a long-term student accommodation policy, and it is intended to bring a methodology on this policy development to Government before the summer recess. Department officials met with the technical university sector on the 23rd of February this year to progress the objectives of the feasibility study and to establish the data and engagement needs from the TUs involved in this process. The terms of reference for TU feasibility studies have been finalised between the Department and the Higher Education Authority. The appointment of the consultant will be completed in Q2 of this year. The study will commence immediately thereafter, with phase 1 of the work focused on establishing a national and regional data picture on supply and demand projections for student accommodation across all publicly funded higher education providers and their environs. A series of further engagements with the TU sector will be led by consultants to inform this study. The role of the institutions in collating the data, presenting the specific needs of the sector and its students, and in assessing options is imperative to the success of this study and to forging a path for the provision of student accommodation. The South East Technological University has conducted a feasibility study and has submitted to the Department for consideration. SETU is currently developing a plan for the delivery of 700 beds on each of the campuses in Waterford and Carlow, i.e. about 1,400 beds in total. SETU is also commencing the process of responding to the requirements of the Public Spending Code in relation to the development of a preliminary business case. The Department, the HEA and its consultants is committed to working with SETU to progress proposals in line with the TU study. The short-term student accommodation policy is progressing while the long-term response is developed. Ministers and their officials are receptive to examining all solutions to assist in solving the student accommodation problem and are ready to work with any or all of the 5 technological universities to support them to assess student accommodation needs and, subject to the agreement of a borrowing framework, to borrow and to build student accommodation.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Murnane.
Okay, well, thank you, Minister, and that is really welcome information. Particularly, I think the dedicated student accommodation unit, which has been established to develop and implement the policy along with the Higher Education Authority, I really want to welcome that. But I think the bigger one for me is the fact that there's going to be, that you have said that there's a need for 700 unit accommodation for Carlow and 700, I think, for Waterford. Yeah, that's grand. See that there, 700 beds for each Waterford and Carlow, and that's really welcome. So I am delighted to see now, Minister, that there is such progress after happening. What I would say is, Minister, I think we need to have more information on this. Like I wasn't aware of all this work that was going on, and I think it is important that while we do really appreciate the work that Minister Harris has done, and I can see his commitment and dedication to the South East Technological, but as I said, what we need to do now is we need to get this information, we need to have a plan. So I'm just wondering, while this is really good and welcome, I'm just wondering, could we maybe meet with the Minister and maybe get the rest of information and continue on, so at least we will know then what the updates are, and at least now I'll be able to go back and say to people, well, this is where we are, we have a plan, and this is what's happening. And again, I want to thank you, Minister, and I want to thank Minister Simon Harris for his hard work, commitment and dedication to the work that has happened, and Minister Niall Collins. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thanks, Ciarán Kerner. Well, far be it for me to account for Minister Harris's diary, but I'm sure Deputy Murnane-O'Connor, he'd accede to a request to meet you on this issue. As you know, the student accommodation problem is part of the crisis currently being experienced in the overall housing market, and the increasing costs of construction and financing are compounding the challenges in supply faced by all the higher education institutes in accommodating their growing student population. In responding to these challenges, Minister Harris and Collins, with the support of Government, have developed a number of initiatives which I have just gone through. In order for technological universities to thrive and to ensure balanced regional development, there is a need to have more student accommodation in the regions. The technological universities are ready for the challenge. This funding will start them on their path. Ministers and their officials welcome the SETU initiative in conducting a feasibility study, and in particular the development of an accommodation plan to include 700 new beds in Carlow and another 700 in Waterford. The assessment will be progressed with the Department and the HEA over the coming months in conjunction with the overall TU feasibility process for student accommodation. The Department is working with the relevant government departments to explore the development of a specific borrowing framework for TUs. The Department will consider the identification and reuse of vacant premises, which may be particularly suitable for regional locations. And officials met with the City and County Management Association, CCMA, on the 24th of May to explore the use of vacant properties as an option for the supply of student accommodation. The Rent a Room scheme has been expanded to include local authority tenancies, and the income earned from the scheme will not be included in assessing medical card eligibility. Work is ongoing across all relevant departments to progress the implementation of these changes and other changes. And I'm pretty sure, Deputy, if you look for a meeting with Minister Harris or Collins, that will happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister.